you pull on that jersey, you represent yourself and your teammates. And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Get that through your head.
And here we go.
And it is no good. He missed it. Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that.
The playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs to the 50. He runs to the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
Another edition of the program. I am your host, Tyler Falk. Glad to have you with us on this Thursday evening. There'll be no show tomorrow, as that'll be week 2 of the SFL Minor League. And of course, we got the quarterfinals to talk about today. And still not feeling too terribly well. Yesterday I was out due to work, but cold's going around the shop, and so a lot of us just aren't feeling well down here at the moment. But I'm going to try and muscle through this one, and we'll see what happens. In other news, unbeknownst to NETMA, unbeknownst to myself, we all heard last night that Dave Axis, original creator of Axis Live, now Road to Glory, along with Adam Williams, of course, they'll be retiring at the end of the season. Wish them the best of luck. And Dave, of course, community ambassador of the season, I believe, about half a year ago. Bittersweet to see another content creator, at least the player, leave, and haven't read fully into what has happened. Hadn't had a chance to look and see Dave's show last night to take a deeper look. Just haven't been feeling well. Haven't been able to watch a whole lot the last couple of days, especially with other things going on at the moment. So best of luck to Dave and Adam as they leave Lone Star at the end of the season and their retirement. All right, let's get to this weekend, right? It's going to be a doubleheader. Yesterday I was going to talk about key matchups to look for and a couple of other things to look out for each game, and we'll try and kind of tie that in to Now You Know / Pick'ems for this weekend. But let's get a feel about how we did this past weekend for Wildcard. Of course, I mentioned it on Monday. Community. You're gonna have some tough weeks like this, and I know we both have had a couple of strange, weird things. And you guys won the regular season. I start off hot in the playoffs, 3-1. Community 0-4 to start off. Maybe now that we get the top seeds in, maybe it's a little bit kinder to you guys. But that's how we come into this week. No best bets here for the postseason. If there was one game that I had felt good about, it wasn't the Florida. I think it was the Florida Sioux Falls game. Let's see, who did I have as my mock best bet? I think it was DC Tulsa that I as my best bet for the week, and then I picked Tulsa to cover at least the spread, which they did, and of course they won. They're playing a team we're going to talk about right now. That is Vancouver and Tulsa, and a very key matchup to look for here in this one is Tom Pepper for Vancouver versus the entirety of Tulsa secondary. Now, Tom has done, I would say, a pretty okay job this season, top 10 in terms of interceptions thrown by a quarterback. However, he is going up against a couple of really good defensive backs over in Tulsa. 3 out of the 4 players for Tulsa have multiple pick sixes, that being Rashid Shaw and Wright. For Tulsa. But in general, both got 3 of their defensive backs are in the top 15 as in terms of how many picks they've got in terms of the league average. And that's Rashid and Thornton both with 8 picks, putting them at 13th in the league. And Daniel Wright, who's got 9 interceptions, putting them at 8th in the league. The best that Vancouver can boast of is Drew Hamilton, who has 7, leading the team, and that's only 22nd best in the league. If you look at both teams' total picks throughout the entire season and postseason, Tulsa's blowing Vancouver out of the water with 9 more interceptions than Vancouver. This defensive secondary is surprisingly good. And this entire team for Tulsa has gotten really good as of late, which is why I'm giving the edge to Tulsa to at least cover the spread, Miss Hall, who Vancouver, in my opinion, should still win this game. In fact, a majority of their games they have won in close margin. The last time that Vancouver has won by more than a touchdown goes all the way back to week 6 when they played Florida. Since then, they have not beaten a team by a margin of victory of 7 or more. It's been in their lengthy 8-game winning streak. 8-game winning streak. What am I talking about? Their 8-game winning streak, they have not been able to pull away from a couple of teams. That includes a couple of scares in the last 3 games they played versus San Diego, Houston, and LA. San Diego nearly shocked him if it wasn't for a good second half from Vancouver. Los Angeles played him tooth and nail. More than likely should have won that football game. Vancouver is a very boomer bust, and I like the way Solberg put it in chat. Very boomer bust. This game is either going to go one or two ways, and I completely agree with Solberg on one point. It is either going to be an offensive slugfest, where it's going to be a shootout, kind of reminiscent of how Desperados have liked to play as of late, scoring, about last 2 games, 36 points, 45 points, 31 points in week 6 versus St. Louis, 38 in a win versus Denver in week 4. Tulsa loves to go on a shootout. Vancouver really hasn't done that a whole lot this season. The biggest scoring game they've had was Lone Stars. The lone game against Lone Star where they won by 10. Well, there you go, my margin of victory fact. But besides that game of 4-10, everyone else has been close to 7. Regardless, right? Vancouver is going to need to play smart football. If they can afford to throw downfield, they're going to have to be careful. And so, Tulsa, in my opinion, is going to cover the spread. Maybe take an underdog victory, but that's a very slight chance. We talked about it on NetMetrics 2 days ago. Tulsa, on paper, is one of the weakest teams coming in to the quarterfinals. It is going to be a tough game for the Desperados. They can pull it off. They have pulled off a couple of crucial victories as of late. Louisiana week 13, DC this past week, past wild card week. Tulsa can play against tough opponents and win. Will they do it against Vancouver? I don't know. That's to be decided all on the field. All right, next game, Sioux Falls Lone Star. We talked a little about Lone Star and their news earlier here today, but with what they have on the field today, or this weekend, I should say, the Sparrows are going to, and they've done it for the last couple of games. They've done it throughout this entire season, the Sparrows have. It's that defensive backfield. They love to get in your face. They love to play bump coverage. They love to force receivers off their routes. We know that they've got a certain Dave Axis, a certain diva on the side that's going to be a bump buster. That is going to at least make one cornerback look silly. But that might not happen a whole lot because if it's not the Sparrows DBs that are forcing the receivers off their routes, then you've got a very, very good linebacking core. Fargo, of course, has 2 interceptions. Derek Williams, outside linebacker, has an interception. They love to run nickel. They are built for a nickel defense, which has, again, surprisingly, in this league, is a nickel defense can work as a run-stopping force, which we've seen it with St. Louis, we've seen it with Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls is gonna force some mistakes out of these receivers. The big thing for me is, can the Lone Star receivers get some separation? Will we see a Dave Axis big day? I think Sioux Falls' defense is going to win out the day, and Sioux Falls is going to cover their own spread. They're going to score more than a field goal. Probably, I'd say it's going to be a 5-point ball game, not a 3.5-point ball game. But I think the Sioux Falls Sparrows have enough. Tyree, again, I've talked about it throughout the season. He looks a lot more composed. He's second best in completion percentage. He's not throwing the ball to as many defensive backs as much, which is something that Lone Star, again, struggles with. The defensive backfield for Sioux Falls is hungry. I talked about how Tulsa's defensive backfield has a bunch of people in the top 15, 3. Sioux Falls has 4 in the top 15 in terms of interceptions. Jay Ringel leads the way for the team with 10, with double digits. It's going to be a tough day for the Glory, even at home. They've had maybe 1 or 2 big games, the Glory, that they've won. A majority of their wins have come against teams that have finished the season below 500. However, the Glory can boast that they have lost to good teams. But in the playoffs, you're going to need to beat those good teams. Mexico City and London are the 2 only teams that Lone Star has beaten that finished the season over 500. Sioux Falls can boast a much more stacked record in terms of that category. Florida, London, DC, Tulsa, all teams above 500, much more than Lone Star. I think Sioux Falls has a much more better pedigree, might have the better game plan going into, and it might be an early exit for Denton, Texas. On to Sunday's slate of games now. Baltimore and London. We saw this in season 17, week 12. London upsetting Baltimore, stretching their perfect season. This is a matchup between the 2 quarterbacks. We've seen the last couple of weeks, even in a loss, Wigmore found a way to win with multiple interceptions. However, London's defense is not going to be so forgiving this time around. The London defense, again, one of the better in the playoffs. Something to look for is, more specifically, whoever makes the most mistakes on the quarterbacking role, their team will lose the game. In fact, I'm going as far as to say, if Pickler throws more than 2 interceptions or throws 2 interceptions or more, London will have lost the football game. Because that will mean momentum has gone to Baltimore. They only need a couple of takeaways. The pedigree needed. We've talked about it before. You need perfection. DC showed it earlier this season. You don't defend them, you attack them. London can do that. Yes, they lost to in week 1 where the scouting reports were maybe a little off kilter. Now they have plenty of game tape. That's what they had at the end of the last season. London is going to shock Baltimore at home this time. And London will not just cover the spread, they will take the ball game. London over Baltimore. If I had a best bet, I would say London winning would be my best bet for this week. Final game, defensive slugfest. Charleston, Louisiana, the 2 top defenses coming into today in the playoffs. Louisiana, 3.5-point favorites at home. Last time these 2 teams met, Louisiana shut out Charleston at home, in Charleston, not Louisiana. Charleston, we're still maybe trying to figure out what Kentiz can do. But Kentiz has really provided a really good spark for the Predators. This time the Preds will be ready. This time they will not be shut out. It was going to be a much more comprehensive ball game on both sides of the football. Charleston will not make as many mistakes. They will not be neglectful on 3rd down. Louisiana is going to need to play perfect football. If Charleston can force a couple of turnovers from Tommy Utah, this game is all up in the arms, all up in the air. Who knows what could happen? I think the consistency from the 3 running back tandem, who, again, maybe an underlying story. Again, we know about the 2-back system, but slowly but surely, Collier gets involved. The fullback gets involved for the Revolution. That adds another wrinkle to the game plan. Last week, they had over 150 yards on the ground combined, whereas Charleston almost single-handedly uses Swearingen on the ground. Sutherland has yet to have more than a carry this entire season. And that one and only carry went for 0 yards. The Revolution have utilized their entire system. Yes, Hart is the feature back, but you cannot forget about Squarebush and Collier. We know how dangerous Squarebush is, especially in the minor leagues. And Hart, again, front runner for Sioux Falls for so many years. Collier, another fantastic back. It's going to be up to the linebacking cores of both teams in order to stop these 2 backs. Whichever linebacking core can hinder the running game will come out with the victory. In my opinion, it's Louisiana by about a 4-point margin, maybe 20-16 final score. All right, that's all I've got to cover. That's all the opinions. Here's how it looks. Here's what's going on this weekend. Saturday, Tulsa, Vancouver, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. That's all games are on Next Level. That's also going to be on Rare Drop Twitch. Sioux Falls Lone Star coming up right after 4:45. That's going to be on SFL Twitch. Then on Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, London, Baltimore. That game over on Rare Drop as well as Next Level. Final game of the weekend, Charleston, Louisiana. That's on SFL YouTube as well as Next Level Sports. That is what's going on this weekend. Tomorrow, another week for the minor league. Again, not a whole lot to look for. We know how dangerous Randy Squarebush can be. And now that everybody knows he's back in the minor leagues, there's a heavy favorite on who you got right now, with Annapolis maybe 103 right now as I'm looking at it live to Albuquerque's 34 in votes. No one's sleeping on Annapolis now. My picks for the weekend, I've got to go Annapolis. I'm more than likely going to go Lincoln as far as straight up picks. Ottawa, Madison, I'm going. That's a tricky one. I'm going to go Ottawa for that one. And then San Jose, Tacoma. I'm going to go. Tacoma looked pretty good. So did San Jose. I'm going to go in San Jose. So for the minor league, Annapolis, Lincoln, Ottawa, San Jose. That's my minor league picks for the weekend. And that's going to wrap up another week of the program. So next week, we'll talk the aftermath of the quarterfinals, start breaking down the semifinal action, maybe get a few more guests on next week, talk about the season, talk about the semifinals coming up, and so much more. Until then, we'll see you next week and have a very fantastic week. And until then, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.